Meditation Podcast, and this is Joe Consford. I'm going to read Dr. White's morning meditation called Simon, Thou Shalt Be Called Cephas, John 1:41 and 42. Dr. White says, After I read my 5 Psalms this morning, I began perusing through the Scriptures and saying, Lord, what shall our morning meditation be today? And when I came to the incident of Andrew bringing Peter to Jesus, I felt the Lord would have me share some thoughts with you. John 1:41 and 42 say, He first findeth his own brother Simon, and said unto him, We have found the Messiah, which being interpreted, the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. And when Jesus beheld him, he said, Thou art Simon, the son of Jonah, thou shalt be called Cephas, which is by interpretation a stone. First of all, this is not when Simon was saved. He had become a believer under the ministry of John the Baptist. And as an apostle, one had to continue from the ministry of John the Baptist until Christ was taken up in the ascension to qualify. Acts 1:21 and 22. To qualify to be an apostle. A good passage to read with this is Matthew 4:18 and 19. This is when John's disciples began to follow Jesus, and it involves a call to service. Many have used this to teach soul winning, and it is a good illustration. But it is not when Peter was saved. It is a time when he begins to follow Jesus in preparation for the ministry. An example, and he saith unto them, Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Matthew 4:19. You do not call an unsaved man to fish for men. This incident reveals that Jesus knew Simon. This is described in the words of verse 41. He findeth his own brother, Simon, and saith unto him, We have found the Messiah, which is being interpreted, the Christ. John had preached concerning the Messiah. John 1:29 through 34. There is no doubt that Simon knew John's message on the subject. But because of this passage, I believe this is the first time Simon had come to meet Christ personally and have someone say, We have found the Messiah. That someone was his brother Andrew, which is being interpreted the Christ. This is the first time Simon met Jesus personally. The words, And when Jesus beheld him, he said, Thou art Simon, the son of Jonah. Thou shalt be called Cephas, which is by interpretation a stone. This reveals that Jesus knew Simon before Simon knew him. This is always the case. When I came to him as a lost sinner and confessed my sins and asked him to save me, I didn't have to say, Lord, I need to introduce myself. My name is Earl White. I need to tell you a little about who I am. I didn't have to say that to God. He already knew all about me. I need to confess before him that I was a sinner. But it didn't surprise him, and I did not tell him a thing that he didn't already know. Since this is getting acquainted with the Lord beyond the salvation experience, I must say that Jesus already knew Simon. This is going beyond the saving relationship to a service relationship. Simon needs to know something from the very beginning. This is the one he is about to follow knows all about Simon, the son of Jonah. He knows where Simon came from. He is the son of Jonah. He is an Adamic fallen man. He is named by his human father. Before he can be renamed by Jesus, he has to know exactly who he is in Adam. This is one of the reasons many have such a time with grace. They are constantly trying to cover up their past. They are clothing themselves in the fig leaves of self-improvement. They say, if I'm going to serve him, I must clean up my life. I must be a better person if I'm going to be used of God. They somehow can't grasp that they are naked before Jesus. My past and where I came from is not hidden from him. Simon begins to follow one from whom nothing can be hidden. Isn't it amazing that knowing what Jesus knew about Simon, he would still say to him, "Follow me"? That is grace. The words, "Thou art Simon, the son of Jonah, thou shalt be called Cephas," which is, by interpretation, a stone, indicates the Lord's intention to change Simon. The words "thou art" is a present indicative verb. The word Simon is the Greek form of a Hebrew name meaning God has heard. So we're going to go from God has heard, salvation, to Cephas, which means a stone. The words "thou shalt be called" is a future passive indicative. The future tense means that Jesus is making a prophecy. Simon is not a stone at the present time. It is not what I am now that determines my acceptance for service. It is what Jesus can make of me. The verb is a passive voice. This is when the subject is acted upon. In other words, Simon will not call himself Cephas. This is what others will call him. The name Cephas is found 6 times in the New Testament. The first time is here when Jesus used it. 6 is the number of man. Jesus takes Simon, the son of Jonah, and makes him into the man God intended him to be. Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, calls Cephas 5 times. This is the number of grace. It takes grace to take Simon, the son of Jonah, and make him into Cephas, which is by interpretation a stone. Oh, the marvelous grace that takes me as a fallen son of Adam, a man made of dust, and makes me into a stone. Peter says in 1 Peter 2:5, "Ye also as lively stones are built upon a spiritual house, an holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices, acceptable to God by Jesus Christ." Someone has said, every life is a plan of God. I believe the Bible teaches that God has a purpose for me. Paul said in Philippians 1:6, "Being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it unto the day of Jesus Christ." It was the Lord who gave Simon his new name. At the time, Simon was not a rock, but Jesus kept working on him and with him until finally Simon became Cephas. I don't think Simon ever felt like Cephas. He never called himself Cephas. He did call himself Simon Peter. In his second epistle, verse 1, I think Peter always felt like Simon. He had learned that you can't make yourself a rock by calling yourself a rock. Mark 14:31 says, "But he spake the more vehemently, If I should die with thee, I will not deny thee in any wise. Likewise also they all." Simon tried to play the role of the rock here, but he learned that only Jesus can make a rock out of dust. When we come to Jesus and confess ourselves sinners, it does not surprise him. He knows us as the sons of Adam. When we come to him for service, we must be willing for him to rename us. He will change us. I must be willing for him to change me. This change will take place over a period of time. It will never be fast enough. I will try to help him along the way, and when I do, I will only be embarrassed at my failure. But if I will endure his chastening, Hebrews 12:7-10, he will take me from where he found me to the place he has planned for me. The Lord is able to take Simon and make Cephas. May the Lord give me wisdom to cooperate with the process. And may the Lord bless these words to our heart today.
Complete in thee, no work of mine could dear Lord, the place of thine. Thy blood hath poured and bought for me, and I shall stand